Hello everybody and welcome back. As we all know, there's a lot of releases on PSVR2 and some that unfortunately get swept under the rug a little bit. Now, I can't cover everything even though I try my best to, whether it's a review or a passing comment in a news video, but today I wanted to put the spotlight on a particular VR game and VR developer that I've been playing over the last few days after they sent me a key, and I want to highlight the work they put into this game and also the interaction with the PSVR and VR community in making their game better. To put a bit of attention as much as I can as the small little creator that I am, to give them a little boost and to talk about their game a little bit. So let's take a look at Corridor VR and the developer behind it. Before we jump into this though, only 25% you are subscribed, so please feel free to like and subscribe if you do feel so inclined. Anyway, let's get into it. Also, a big thank you to Brian for sending over the dev my way. Otherwise, I never would have been able to even hear about this game or play it on the channel. So we love Brian from Without Parole. If you're somehow not subbed to him as well as me, please go and do that. Anyway, Corridor VR is a puzzle game. It's not a really long one. My progress got reset when the game launched officially and I got to about 75% of the way through. And I want to say I was sitting at about an hour's worth of playtime maybe there after really fumbling around with some of the puzzles because I am very stupid at games, especially puzzle games. But essentially, you're put on a spaceship, something happens to the spaceship, and suddenly you're in this liminal space corridor sort of setting where you have to solve puzzles to try and escape. As you journey through these corridors, you'll find traps, you'll have to use mirrors to reflect beams to unlock doors, you'll have to find keys that are sometimes in very hard to reach places, you'll have to do platforming, and you'll have to move blocks to make this platforming more accessible. It's essentially a load of that sort of stuff, but the main hook here is that there are two sides to this corridor, as you can probably see in the gameplay, and pushing a button will switch you over to one side, and pushing it again will bring you back over to the other. There will be certain objects that are on one side and not the other, and certain things you have to interact with on one side to affect the other side, and in that way I found the game really clever. Again, I'm not a really big puzzle guy, so I did get frustrated at certain points because I'm simply not really built for this sort of game. But in a way, it felt a bit like Bone Lab in its physics interactions, which did really pull me in. The visual style is very simple, as you can see, and this is a solo developer, but overall so far I have had fun with it. Again, I haven't finished it as I had to start my progress from the beginning again. That does happen occasionally on PSVR2 game launches, is that the progress that I've done pre-launch gets wiped post-launch with an update. That's nothing against the dev, that's simply where I'm at, so I can't give you a full view of the entire game. But that's not the main focus of today's video. That's a little rundown of what the game is, but I want to focus on the dev and their response to the community here, because it is a good example of a dev listening to the community and making changes where it's needed. Now, the game will not appeal to everybody, of course, maybe because of the visual style or the puzzle gameplay, but the developer has been very open on their Reddit, which is xradarxoo, and did a little Q&A on a post that was talking about the game. Now, they talked a bit about implementing PSVR2 features, and visually the game does look very sharp in the headset, and they've talked about using FSR to enable foveated rendering in this way, which is really good to see, and indie dev jump in with Unity of all engines to do that. And they've also been upfront with the community that there's no headset haptic use here, and no adaptive triggers, because really there isn't anything in the game that warrants it. I would say maybe some damage for the headset haptics would be really nice. Maybe that's a bit of feedback I'll give back to the dev here, but there is standard haptics in the controllers when interacting things and grabbing things and hitting objects, which is a nice touch. So they've been open there in the Q&A about it. The main thing I want to highlight in the Reddit thread here though is that they've been open with taking feedback about reprojection and frame rates, because originally the main build of the game that I played was at 60 FPS and scaling up to 90 with reprojection, which felt a little weird. I don't really get motion sickness nowadays, so I didn't really feel too motion sick from that, but players immediately reported on some posts and impressions that they felt motion sick while playing through it. So the dev went back to the drawing board and looked at trying to make this game run native. Originally, they said the game will run at native 90 when they get a patch out, and performance was their #1 concern. And I've seen PlayStation QA and it can take a really long time, but to their credit, about a day later from that comment being made, they put out a patch to make the game run at a native 120 refresh rate, which is absolutely fantastic. And I can confirm, having played the old version and the new one, it is much better now. And maybe some people will say, well, a game looking this simple should run at a native 120, but there are a couple of physics objects involved here and things to really be concerned about as a dev performance-wise, I guess. But it's good to see it's hit that target now. There are occasional stutters, a little bit I found in certain levels, especially when traversing through doors from one section to the other, but it's not anything too big or noticeable. I can't say whether it will cause any motion sickness because I just don't really feel it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, depending on how sensitive you are to it. But that was a great move by the dev to really look into what the community wanted and fix a reprojection and frame rate issue that people were complaining about. And the game as a whole, despite being puzzle focused, which again isn't really my forte, I found enjoyable and well put together. And again, did really remind me of some much larger budget games like Bone Lab in terms of its physics, sometimes for better and for worse, because Bone Lab is a little bit janky, but it felt different, and I think that's very, very good. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for today's video, to be honest. I just want to expose you to a developer and a game, and Corridor VR as a whole, and the strides they've made to make the game better on PSVR2, and talk to the community, because some bigger studios I've seen have not done that in the past. They've left their games on the platform. Some haven't, to be fair, but some have, and have just left them to rot, but not this dev. So I wanted to put my hands together and say thank you to them, and to show off their game a little bit here. If you're interested, please take a look at the store page, see if it's something that you like the look of, and feel free to jump in. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to our patrons and YouTube members who are on screen once again right now, who keep this channel alive. It is all up to them. Thank you all so much for watching once again, and I'll see you all in the next one.